Hi, everyone. Thank you all for taking time out of your schedules to chat here with us. My name is Keaton Hain. I'm one of the admission staff at Colgate University. I've been with the school for going on 5 years now, so how time flies. I am joined today by an all-star group of individuals who are going to be helping to guide through our session today. So I'll have them introduce themselves in just about 20 or 30 seconds, but just so you know what we can expect, we'll chat for about 45 minutes. This session will promptly end at 7:45 as it is technologically built. We'll talk about career prep and how that happens at Colgate. There'll be time for question and answers, and we're going to have a little bit of fun along the way. So that is what you can expect. Without further ado then, why don't I turn it over to my colleague in admissions who will introduce himself, and then we can go from there.
Hey everyone, my name is Jameer Abney. I am one of the Associate Deans of Admission and your backup moderator for this fine event. I work with students in Texas, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, and Illinois primarily, and I also oversee our diversity recruitment efforts. But I'll be in the background actually answering questions for much of the event this evening. So you won't see much of me, but you will be hearing from me if you have questions utilizing that Q&A box at the bottom of the page. So thanks for joining us, and we look forward to chatting with you.
Teresa, would you like to go next?
Sure. Thank you everybody for joining us. My name is Teresa Olson and I'm the AVP for Career Initiatives, which we'll get into a lot further, but essentially I oversee the traditional career services office here as well as Thought into Action, which is our entrepreneurship incubator.
Awesome.
Hi everyone, I'm Adrian. I'm a junior, I'm a rising junior, which is crazy to say. I'm a molecular biology major and looking to go into pre-health, so medicine. I'm from Columbia, Maryland. Welcome.
Awesome. Yeah, so Teresa and Adrian, thank you all for being with us here today. Students, as my colleague Jameer said, there is a Q&A feature. If you have questions throughout this presentation, please feel free to use that box. You'll either get an answer directly from him, or if it's a question that he believes applies more generally to this session, we'll actually bring it live as we say it, and we'll address it later throughout the presentation. But as we mentioned, this is all about career prep and getting ready for a little bit of life after Colgate. I realize it's a little crazy considering that I'm sure the majority of you are rising high school seniors and we're already thinking down the line, but believe it or not, it will come and go pretty quick. So to open us up, Teresa, I'd actually like to start with you. You know, before we get into the nuts and bolts of specific things that career services offers, just generally, how do you prepare your students for life after college and Colgate, you know, before we talk about individual workshops and specific skills?
Sure, thanks. So as we get started here too, I'll just reemphasize a little bit about what Keaton mentioned. It would be wonderful to hear all your questions and all your thoughts. For our prospective students who are coming into this webinar today, please don't feel like you have to have your questions fully formed. I know when I was a junior or senior in high school, I'm not sure I'd know what to ask. And so Adrian and I would be very delighted to hear whatever thoughts and questions you have. So please feel free to shoot them up, and I know Jameer will take good care of us on the back end here too. A little bit about, we're going to focus a little bit more on career services than Thought into Action, but we'll hit both of them as we go along today. As we think about students' career preparation at Colgate, for us, it's really about making sure that we have individualized attention on the student, and we're putting you right in the middle of all of the work that we do. And what I mean by that is for every student that we have here at Colgate, they have a unique set of strengths, a unique set of interests, personal identities that are really important to them, values that are really important to them, and a whole context around them that really matters. And so when we think about making sure that students have the career preparation, we're really backing that off to say, how do we support the individual student? How do we have a very personalized, individualized approach where students can feel like they don't have to have all the answers, they can come in and spend time working with us and explore the different ways that a career field or an industry or career path might fit for them. And for many of our students, because we are a liberal arts college, many of them are coming in an exploratory mindset. And so they're not exactly sure what they want to do professionally. We love that. We think that's wonderful. And we want to give them some space and some time to really work through that process alongside our career coaches and our career advisors, as we are here too. As we think about it, our goal for students by the end of their 4 years is to make sure that they have enough information that they've thought about themselves first and foremost, because as I said, we anchor everything off of you as unique individuals. We want to make sure that our students have enough information about the world around them so that they can explore different opportunities and evaluate whether or not they're a fit for that student. But we also want to make sure that our students have the skills and the experience that they're going to need to be marketable and competitive for whatever it is that they're interested in doing. And that path may lead to employment. That path may lead to professional schools. And I know Adrian's going to touch on that a little bit from the pre-health side of the world. It may lead to fellowships and scholarships. It may lead to professional athletics. It may lead to military service. It could lead to so many different areas. But we want to ensure that our students are very, very well prepared. And so as we're working through that, you're going to hear a lot today about our engagement approach, which is a 4-year process with students. And then also as your alumni, we don't cut you off in that process as you cross the stage to graduation. But really thinking about very intentionally slowing things down, making sure that students have access to ask a lot of questions and have very specific and concrete guidance as we go along. And then the other piece is that we're really paying attention to what different industries are looking for from students, how we can connect students to different connections that we have, alumni connections, recruiting connections, graduate school connections, employment connections, and to really leverage that community of Colgate and all the reputational thrusts that we can have alongside that to make sure that students are set up for success.
Well, brilliant. That's a pretty comprehensive answer. Actually, that is a beautiful transition. We have our first question already that I think fits lovely right here. So Delaney actually asks, what resources does Colgate offer to students to determine what professional path they take? So Adrian, I'm actually curious to hear from you, right? You're the student. Could you talk about some early things you interacted with? And then Teresa, if you'd be so kind to fill any gaps, I think that'd be fantastic.
Definitely. So just as Teresa had mentioned, a lot of students come into Colgate with an exploratory mindset, not completely knowing what they want to do. And that was actually my mindset. I came to Colgate knowing that it's a great liberal arts school, and that with that in mind, I knew that I could really pursue whatever I wanted to. And for me, I was up in the air between medicine and media, which is so very different, but that's what I knew I wanted to do. And so when I got to Colgate, I went into career services and I asked them, where do I even start? How can I figure out what I really want to do and what I want to get set on? And so they actually have a great service where you can meet up with advisors one-on-one in different industries. And so I met with the pre-health advisor, Courtney, and also with, I think, James in media. And so we discussed and we talked about my interests, and I finally settled on medicine, sorry. And so that's kind of where I went from there. And I continued these conversations with the pre-health advising team, Dr. J. If you come to Colgate and you're into medicine, she's a great resource to have, and also Courtney.
And so as Adrian said, really the best work that we do is individualized, so one-on-one coaching with students. And you may start off saying, I really liked this certain classwork when I was in high school and I want to bring that in. You may have an extracurricular activity that you found that's really compelling for you. And you might find a combination of all of those pieces. So we're going to start from what you know about yourself and then ask a whole lot of questions from there. The other piece that I'll mention that I think is really important is that we do a lot of programming that's designed for first and second year students to be able to explore. So a couple examples just to give you some concrete context about what this year is going to look like. As we welcome students back this year, we're really excited in the first week of students being here. Obviously, it's going to look a little different this year, as you might imagine, but we have some programming that is called the First Year Jumpstart, where we are bringing both our career advisors as well as some current students in to talk with students about how they may get started on this decision-making process. We're not expecting students to get to a decision or a conclusion, but it's more, how do you take this apart and think about it? And I'll let you all in on a little secret. As you're thinking about kind of your career trajectory and where you might go, it's actually the exact same process that you're going to do when you're thinking about your academic choices and about your extracurricular choices. So I'll pick on Adrian a little bit because I know she's incredible to have thought very, very deeply about this. Who she is in the classroom is very congruent with who she is in her extracurricular activities, which is very congruent to what she wants to do professionally. And a lot of times students are going to come to us and say, I know a piece of this, but I'm not sure how to make those other connections happen. And that's exactly where advising comes into play. And sometimes you come in and you say, I like media and I like medicine. So we often try to think through what are the pieces of both of those that make you tick, and how do we have you get to a place where you don't have to give up on one to get to the other too.
I think that's a really good point. It's about flexibility. I often find is a really important factor, not just in career prep, but just when students are starting college for the first time, not being afraid to maybe flip those expectations over and continue to analyze them. So speaking of, I guess continuing to think about what someone wants to do and prep along those lines, we actually had a question here. A student asked, if you have the same career advisor for your entire period while you're at Colgate in career services. I know you have access to the same advisor from an academic standpoint, but Teresa, what's the answer to that question there?
It's a great question, and it really depends on what the student wants to do, to be honest. So the way that we think about this, we have 6 professional staff advisors, and each one of those advisors can meet with any student on any general topic. However, as Adrian mentioned, when you get a little bit more focused in on the types of things that you want to explore, not that you've decided on, but that you're exploring, we want you to be able to work with that advisor, because that advisor's job is to make sure that they understand what's happening in the industry. They're going to be very knowledgeable about the different paths that you may start off with. So for example, Adrian mentioned media. There are so many different ways that you can take that interest and go out and take it for a spin and see whether or not you like it. But they are also in charge of making sure that they are up to speed on the alumni who are in that industry to be able to help you connect in, and also the industry hiring time periods. And your path is going to look really different based on the industry in terms of when you need to activate, how you need to activate, and with which leverage you're going to pull to activate on there too. So, so once you find that person, that's typically the person that you're going to stick with, because they're going to know the most about your industry. However, we believe in a really human-centric approach in our office. It's one of our core philosophical patterns in here too. So if you decide that you love James and James is wonderful and he is your go-to person because you really enjoy talking with him, but he doesn't cover your industry area, you're very welcome to still continue to work with James. And he may refer you over to the person who may have that expertise, but it's really about giving the student what they need. And so we really kind of focus more on ensuring the student is well taken care of, and then a team approach on there too. We do have advising notes that we share with each other, and so it's never a kind of stop and start. It's much more of a seamless approach where we're taking a team approach to making sure students are in a good place.
Now, Adrian, you've had the opportunity to foster a really strong relationship with career services, so much that you're actually a student worker there now. So students, there's a variety of things that you can do on campus to spend some time, meet more people, make a little bit of money. Career services is one of those entities where you can work. I'm curious, Adrian, could you talk about what life of a student worker entails there? And then if you could transition to how you feel that's helped you with your own preparedness, right? You're almost through your Colgate career. I don't mean to scare you, but sorry. How has this helped you with your own personal development so far?
Yeah, for sure. So basically, I've been in and out of career services a lot because I was so up in the air with what I really wanted to do. And I found you guys so helpful. And when the time came around, I saw on Handshake that there was an application that I could fill out to become an outreach and social media intern. So I was like, oh, this is great. Like, I'm already in career services a lot. And actually, in that same week that I applied, I had gotten reached out to by my teammate, Julia, as Teresa had mentioned. And she had said, hey, do you want to be a career services ambassador? And so at this point, I was like, I'm already going to be in there as an intern, so I might as well also be an ambassador. And basically, as an ambassador, I act as a liaison for my teammates to keep them in touch with career services, make sure that they're up to date on their resume, interviews. And like Teresa said, for each industry, there's a different timeline for applying. So I wanted to make sure that all of my teammates were up to date on that stuff as well. As an outreach intern, my job's a little bit different. It's more campus-wide. And so for that role, I actually work on the emails that you guys will get if you come to Colgate that keep you up to date on current job opportunities and the deadlines for those opportunities as well. And being in career services all the time is super helpful for me because I'm always seeing all these deadlines, always hearing about the recent opportunities that I can apply to. And it's just been great getting to know the staff better, getting to know Teresa better. She's awesome, as you guys could see. So it's been a great learning experience and very helpful in terms of figuring out what I want to do, when to apply to things, and staying on top of my stuff as well. So that's kind of been my experience so far.
Well, certainly that experience is still continuing. You still have about 2 years ahead of you. It's interesting, you know, in my role as an admission officer, whenever I talk to students, we're sort of charged with the task of knowing the campus, as I say, an inch deep and a mile wide. And there's two really important things that are run out of career services. One of them is sophomore connections, which I always preach to the choir about how awesome that program is. And the other is Thought into Action, or TIA, as we say. College is full of acronyms, as we know. For the sake of balance, Teresa, would you be so kind as to describe what Sophomore Connections is? And then Adrian, based on our conversation right before this, if you could elaborate with your own experience on what Thought into Action is, I think that'd be helpful for our students today.
Absolutely. So Sophomore Connections is our largest and most robust career development program. It's actually nationally recognized by our professional association, NACE. Typically what we would do is invite approximately 125 alumni across all kinds of different career industries, walks of life, identities, generations, up to campus. We host this event in the 2 days prior to the beginning of spring semester, and we invite the entire sophomore class, and typically about 60% of the class attends. And this program is a very robust look at career preparation and the kinds of decisions that sophomores need to make in that space for them. So let me give you a very, very quick context. When we think about sophomores are faced with some pretty large decisions. Things such as, do I study off campus? What does that look like? How do I choose my major, which is something that will happen in the second semester sophomore year. But it's also a time when we are asking them to go from, I could do anything and I'm probably capable of doing a lot, to maybe there's some stuff that I would rather not do, to wow, there's some stuff that would look kind of more interesting. And we know from our research and all of the work within our industry of career services that it is really essential for students to jump into a summer experience, a robust summer experience after their sophomore year and their junior year. Those are two key moments. And so we want to make sure that we're propelling students to a place where, again, they know a lot more about the types of different career fields that they might explore in that first internship or that second internship, depending on where they start, but also that they're getting some of the skills. So Sophomore Connections is designed to have usually about 15 to 18 different kinds of career panels that students can pick and choose from. So pick your poison, hit 5 of them during the weekend. We go into skills development, such as what is LinkedIn? How do you do a profile? How do you interview? How do you network? What does that look like? And then we actually give students a lot of experience trying this out. And so we'll go through a big networking reception and we'll have moments for them to connect individually with alumni. So we do so from a professional industry basis, but we also do so from a personal identity basis. And so we'll have moments for students to connect in with alumni who might identify in the LGBTQ community, for example, or a professional of color community, for example, or student athlete community, for example, and to try to think about how to help students, again, bring their whole selves into what they're looking for. So it's become an incredibly fun event. If you go on our website, you can take a look at our past keynote speakers and some of the big highlights of Sophomore Connections, and you can find that at colgate.edu/sophomore connections. That will bring you through. And Adrian, go for it on TIA.
That's a great explanation of what Sophomore Connections is. As a recent sophomore, it was a great experience for me. So that was definitely something to look forward to. TIA is basically an entrepreneurship incubator. Just like it sounds, thought into action. It's really just set for students on campus that have an idea but aren't quite sure how to go about getting the idea into action. A mentorship program. I'm new to it, actually, so I don't have too much experience, but the experience that I have so far has been fantastic. I applied in May and was accepted with 2 of my friends on campus. And basically we want to create an Uber Eats, but specific to Hamilton. because we don't have an Uber Eats or an Uber service. So we wanted to bring something similar to Uber Eats to campus, especially with COVID. We wanted to make sure that everyone would be able to get access to the restaurant meals safely without any concerns regarding health or anything like that. And so, so far we have 2 mentors, and they've been amazing in helping us get access to specific people on campus to talk to implement our services. In addition, they provide funding, which has been great. And they're just such a great resource to have, especially if you're someone that is looking forward to becoming an entrepreneur. It's a great experience to have access to, for sure. So.
Well, that's wonderful. Certainly going forward, food will be extra important, more important than it already is when it comes to the college survival guide. But Adrian, I'm curious, you mentioned you have 2 mentors. Would you mind sharing who those are and sort of what role they have? How you got connected with them?
Yeah. So Wills and Carolyn, I'm not exactly sure what their role is in TIA. I want to say that they're overall mentors for TIA, but we've been in contact with them nonstop. Sorry, go ahead, Teresa.
No, sorry, Adrian. Sorry to interrupt you. I would say Carolyn's the director of TIA, so she actually works here in Benton Hall, and then Wills is our alumni executive director. So the 2 of them partner to really run it. Yeah, go for it.
Wow, well, they're at our fingertips. Like, we could text them and everything, and they're great. We meet up with them all the time. So that's really surprising to hear that they run the whole thing, because I mean, they're so accessible. But they've connected us with a lot of people throughout Colgate, specifically people that are working with food delivery already. So for the fall, we actually have a food delivery system that's going to be in place that delivers dining hall food, but not restaurant food. So we've been working with those specific mentors to get in touch with other people throughout Colgate to make sure that we're in touch with the right people and have all the boxes checked off. So.
Well, awesome. And actually, this works out beautifully. You know, alumni have come up a couple of times. I always preach as to how helpful and generous alumni can be for our students. I myself am not a Colgate graduate. They were extremely important into sort of catching me up to speed when I first started representing the institution. But there's a really great question that is in this same realm. So Charlie actually asked, does the career and internship program help alumni as well? So once our students, they go through their 4 years, they graduate, how or if can they keep coming back and having that help? Teresa, I think that's a great question for you.
Yeah, Charlie, so we are I can never say this fast, fee-free for life. So even if you graduate, or when you graduate, I should say, we want you to stay in touch. And we get pretty attached to our students while they're students, so it actually becomes a really fun piece for us to have you stay in touch. So say, for example, you graduate and you, I'm gonna kind of follow Adrian's path here. As you can tell, she's a total rock star. So she's going to land wherever is gonna make her happy, but she might decide that she wants to take a little break from school before she goes back into the health professions field. And so she may work for a couple of years, and then she cycles back and is ready to apply to a graduate school or a professional school. In her case, she might be applying for a fellowship, whatever it may be. That is a wonderful point at which Adrian might come back to us and say, okay, I need a little bit of help. I'm switching tracks. I'm applying to school now. How do I write that personal statement again? And how do I ask for that letter of recommendation? Or she might say, you know what, I'm loving working and I'm not ready to go to medical school yet. I know I'll end up there because I'm going to change the world in that way as well. But in the time being, I'm going to go figure out this whole TIA venture and take a spin for there too. So whether it's a question about employment, job shifts, transitions, as you can imagine, COVID has knocked everybody on their head a little bit. So helping students and alumni recover and figure out how to stand back up again too. All of those pieces are very, very much in our bandwidth and things that we're very used to helping. And frankly, it's a good thing for us to stay in touch with our alumni as well. We have 33,000 alumni in the world, and you never know when you're going to need a little bit of a hand. So we would much rather have people feel like they can turn back to Colgate and take full advantage of our resources and our alumni network and all of the work that Career Services does. And the only difference really between being an alum and accessing us and being a student, though these days it's pretty similar, is that oftentimes you're going to access us remotely as an alum. So you can be anywhere in the world and give us a call or do a Google Hangout just as easily as if you were here visiting with us on campus.
And while we're on the topic of alum, can either of you maybe highlight or think of off the top of your head some notable alumni when it comes to, showcasing the cool work that our graduates can do once they go through these steps and they go out into the real world?
I can start with some, well, they're not necessarily notable, but they've been extremely helpful, and I think really applicable to kind of what Teresa's saying in terms of the alumni network being so vast. Career Services just launched the Colgate link, which has been extremely helpful for me personally, especially with everything that's going on. My internship was canceled this summer, unfortunately, and so I thought, well, what a great time it would be to connect with some alumni and figure out kind of what should I be doing? Is it okay that I don't have an internship this summer because I'm going into my junior year, et cetera? And I reached out to a bunch of alumni through this Colgate link, and actually was able to find alumni that were, one, student athletes, and two, lived right in Columbia, Maryland. So we were able to meet up eventually once things were all clear and restaurants were open, et cetera. And I plan to stay in touch with them as long as possible. They've been awesome and extremely helpful. They even looked over my resumes, which was fantastic. So those are my awesome alumni.
Keaton, I was brainstorming a little bit coming into this meeting, and your webinar isn't long enough for my huge list, but I'll just give you a little bit of a taste of some of the things that our wonderful alumni are doing. So, we have alums who are working to put the Mars rover program together, and so they've actually built the Mars rover that's going up and doing exploration and space exploration. We have Forbes 30 under 30 entrepreneurs who are running these incredible companies looking at sustainability and how do you create apparel off of recycled water bottles, and have been noted there. We have folks who are in the US Congress and people who are world-class pediatric cardiologists who are changing the world one person at a time, or one law or one bill at a time. And we also have folks who are, professional athletes and bringing Stanley Cups back into Hamilton to show the Colgate team what they've done. People who are working as activists and teachers who are in the most under-resourced school districts trying to find the next talent coming up in the world too. And then we have people who are running corporations and businesses for real estate and finance and consulting, and you name it, we have it. And as Adrian mentioned, the wonderful part about this is that there is just this collegiality in the shared experience of being up here in Hamilton, that by the time that you leave Hamilton and your 4 years here, it's entirely in your blood and in your DNA. And so it's so much fun to see people circle back and to cycle back in. They have benefited from the pathway that people before them have been able to create and to generate. And so they're really excited to be able to give back to students and to be able to pull them along in the next generation.
Hearing the two of you talk about just different resources and outcomes, students, I think what would be a fair point to sort of make sure that you take home at the end of this session, like there is no one true path that you have to follow. There's no one correct way where you have to navigate through career services or college, or, as cliche as it sounds, life. For the fact of the matter, I mean, hearing that very short list of all different folks who are doing all sorts of things, those are just a couple examples of all the different ways that you can find success after college and after Colgate. So if you're not quite sure what it is you want to study, if the concept of engaging with an office like maybe career services or just Colgate staff members or college staff members can be a little intimidating, that's okay. Those are perfectly natural feelings to have. Just rest assured that the time and effort that you're going to get at a place like Colgate from those awesome staff members, that is really what's going to help you find that success and separate you from a lot of other students coming from a lot of other schools. So with that being said, for the sake of time, it is 7:30 Eastern Standard Time exactly. So we have just about 15 minutes. I want to jump to our Q&A section of this webinar here. Adrian, I've got a lot of questions about what is it like to be a pre-med student? What sort of resources do you have? What's it like going through early assurance or going into med school? Could you just chat us up on just what it is like being a pre-med student at Colgate?
Sure, definitely. So to start, what is it like? It's been a great experience so far. I've really enjoyed my classes. They're extremely hands-on, and to have access to professors that are extremely willing to help you at the drop of a dime is unbelievable. I talk to pre-med students at other colleges, and they say that they have to wait in line for office hours, et cetera. And I can just email my professor and say, hey, can I come in at this time? And they're ready to meet. So in terms of having access to professors that are already willing to help, in addition to career services advisors that are always willing to help, has been amazing. As soon as you get to campus, it's definitely important to kind of have an idea of what is needed in order to be able to apply on time, because there are so many requirements. But since Colgate is a liberal arts school, it's amazing because you don't have to commit to a major until your sophomore year. So you can start taking pre-med classes, which is sort of what I did. I started taking general chemistry, and then biology the second semester of my freshman year. And then I realized, okay, this is something that I'm really, really liking, really into. And then I kind of planned out the rest of my semesters with my pre-health advisor, Dr. J, and her department in Courtney Aldridge through career services. And they were really able to help me plan out exactly what I needed to take, when I needed to take it, and then when I could apply. Teresa mentioned a little bit about taking a gap year and also planning to study abroad, which I was planning on doing both of those things. So they were able to help me organize my schedule to figure out, okay, when can I go abroad? If I do go abroad, what classes do I need to take, et cetera, which has been awesome and extremely helpful. What else should I touch on?
No, I think that's pretty good. I guess, are you familiar? And if not, I'm happy to touch upon it. Like there's this early assurance program that Colgate offers. Could you touch upon that? Or if not, I'm happy to take the reins there.
Very, very small amount.
Go ahead.
I actually reached out to Dr. J at the beginning of quarantine and was like, is this something I should check out? And she basically just said that it's available. So you have to know exactly what you want to do early assurance. And that was kind of my issue. I'm pretty sure that the early assurance program, you have to apply by the end of your sophomore year, or maybe like March of your sophomore year. And for me, like I had said, I came in not completely knowing what I wanted to do. So I didn't have all of the requirements, I don't think, set in place to be able to do that. Teresa, you might be able to talk more about early assurance.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to. So a couple of things that Adrian mentioned that I'll riff off of too. I think absolutely we have wonderful agreements with a couple institutions that will look at students and do that acceptance. If you do the early assurance, it means that you're bypassing the MCATs, which is a huge bonus and a really nice moment because the MCATs are there for a very real and very robust exam of your content knowledge. So being able to be successful going into this early assurance, schools are really looking for students who are extremely focused in on specifically that school and what they want to do. I will say in terms of the pre-health advising process, a couple of nuances that are not specifically unique to Colgate, but pretty distinctive of Colgate and a very small handful of schools. So one, Adrian mentioned how accessible our faculty are. If you're going towards pre-med or frankly any of the natural sciences or a career that requires a graduate degree to get into entry-level roles, one of the unique and powerful components of Colgate is that we do not have graduate students here. And so you are researching and in classes right along with our. What that means is that the level of your research, the level of your understanding and your knowledge is expedited and held to an extremely high standard. So when you go into a medical school application cycle or into a graduate school application cycle, you've published, you've done research. Many of our academic majors require research in your senior year and self-design research. And so those are types of experiences that typically within a university setting would go towards graduate students first, and then you work for the graduate students, or you would be taught by the graduate students rather than the full faculty members. And that really has an impact on how ready our students are when they enter into these academic processes and into these academic timelines. So that's one piece. The second piece that I'll mention, which is really important to Adrian's process and other students who are looking at the pre-health array of schools in there, is that we have a pre-health advising committee that is compiled of mostly faculty. Dr. J, who is our beloved and incredibly fabulous pre-health advisor, she is a chemist and she is outstanding. And also a couple staff members such as our pre-health and wellness advisor here in career services. And as students prepare, whether they're current students or alumni going into the health professions process, we actually do a very rigorous pre-selection process where we will bring students in, have them go through interviews with the committee, have them submit all of their materials, their personal statements, their transcripts, their letters of recommendation, the whole 9 yards. And then the committee generates a letter, a committee letter on the student's behalf that goes out to those health professions schools. And that committee letter is signed by the whole committee, and it really stands up in a very, very different way than if a student independently went through. So not only is Adrienne going to get the benefit as a pre-health student of the academic advising that goes into planning there, she will get advising in terms of when to go to school, how to go to school, what types of schools to select, coming back off of MCAT scores and grades, where her range should be to look, but she's also going to get the full support of the committee going into her applications, which is pretty outstanding. The last thing, Adrienne, if you don't mind, if you can mention just the Golden Fellowship, because as you folks can tell, once we found Adrienne, we're trying to fill her with all the resources that we can and pull her into all the opportunities that we can because she's so wonderful. But Adrienne, can you just mention the Golden Fellowship as one other source of support for our pre-law and our pre-health students?
Yeah, I can't believe that I forgot the Golden Fellowship. That's my favorite part of everything that you guys have to offer, honestly. So basically, the Golden Fellowship is a fellowship that's offered to sophomores, juniors. So you apply either in your sophomore year or your junior year. If you don't get it your sophomore year, you can still apply your junior year, which I think is so amazing and awesome because there are some requirements that maybe you might not be able to fulfill in your sophomore year that you reach in your junior year. And so basically, as a Golden Fellow, as Teresa mentioned, it's both for pre-law and for pre-health students. They fund your summer opportunities, which is huge because once you start applying to these internships, you'll realize a lot of them are underfunded, if at all funded, which can be quite the struggle as a college student. So to have that support throughout your summers, to have funding, to be able to go wherever you want to go is amazing. In addition, they also have funding for your MCAT, which is costly, and they also have funding for admissions processes and applications. So it's a great resource to have, and I can't wait to tap into those resources. And they also have it's a cohort of students. So it's kind of like an alumni network within the Colgate Alumni Network, which has been great. I've already connected with a few Golden Fellows who recently graduated, and they've been super helpful because they were just in the thick of it, just applying. So they have a lot of really helpful tips for when it's time for me to prepare to take my MCATs, when it's time to apply. So it's been a great resource so far.
Well, speaking of support and collaboration, there's actually 2 questions that I'd like to combine into one. And Adrienne, I'd actually like to direct them to you. So the first part of this comes from Elliot. So they ask, how would you describe student life on the campus and the relationships with your peers and teachers, both in and out of the classroom, right? So relationships from a bit more general sense. And then let me see, there was another piece here that I thought tied together really well. Of course, I won't be able to find it now. Well, why don't you answer that part first, and then if I can find the second piece, I'll come right back to it.
Definitely. Okay, so as a student athlete, I came into Colgate kind of with a set peer group, but I really wanted to branch out. And so I joined a lot of clubs, specifically multicultural clubs, so that I could meet peers that shared similar interests and backgrounds as myself. And that was a great resource because I got to meet a lot of upperclassmen as a freshman who kind of mentored and guided me so far. Also, as a student athlete, we're traveling a lot. So I missed a lot of class in the fall season when it's time to travel. And my professors were always super understanding. So I'm sure even not being a student athlete, they're even more understanding that sometimes you get sick, and it's really just a dean email away to let them know, like, hey, like, these are the dates when I'm going to be out for me personally, because I have a schedule of when I'm going to be out. And then they would forward that along to my professors. And then I would just remind them I'm going to be gone during these days. And if you're sick, it's the same thing. Just email them, hey, I'm not feeling well. I'm not going to be in class. I'll make sure to get the lecture notes from a friend. And I've never had an issue. All of my professors have been extremely understanding and helpful. And same with my peers when it comes to missing class and getting notes from them as well. So it's been great so far.
I think the second half of our question was answered by Jameer. So Jameer, thank you for that. But I still think it's valuable to share with the whole group. It came from Kevin, if I do remember correctly. And it was something along the lines of, you know, some schools have a reputation of being very competitive as far as like when it comes to getting access to career prep. Now, Kevin actually says, based on what they've heard, that doesn't seem to be true at Colgate, right? And in fact, it seems to be more of a collaborative atmosphere. So Adrian and then Teresa, you're welcome to chime in on this too. How do you find Colgate seems to foster this very friendly, open, sort of inclusive environment for as far as bringing folks in and being able to sort of meet them where they are in this search process that can seem a little daunting from first glance?
So from a competitive perspective, I've never ran into that issue. I definitely hear what you're saying, because in terms of going to Yale and other Ivy League schools, it can be really stressful. And the retention rate at those schools are much higher because of that. But for me personally, I've found a lot of, I bounce off a lot of ideas with my friends. Like I study with my friends a lot, specifically as a person that's pursuing pre-health. Like it can be really overwhelming at times, just because it's a lot of content and really tough, difficult content. And there's tons of study groups that you can join very easily. And they'll just sit down and help you figure out whatever it is that you're struggling with. There's tutoring sessions. The professors will have tutoring sessions. So I've never really ran into an issue of feeling like I'm competing with my peers, because I've only benefited from helping or returning the favor to my peers. So Teresa, if you.
Yeah, sure. I think that's absolutely right. And, you know, Colgate is a place that we need to challenge you. We want to challenge you. We admit students who want to be challenged, because if you are the same person on day one that you are by the time you graduate, we have not done our job really well. So the wonderful folks at Admission are pulling folks in who have an appetite to learn and to grow and to develop. And so part of that is that you need to get to a place that sometimes you hit a wall, and you need to realize that that's okay to ask for help. And that there are wonderful places like our office or our academic deans, student support services, the Writing and Speaking Center. There's so many different avenues there. But every single solitary person on this campus wants the students to succeed. We are not looking to weed people out. We're looking to have them be here and have them excel in their academics, but to excel as humans and as emerging professionals, as we like to call them as well too. So all of our support, all of our structures, all of our interactions with students are to say, we know that you belong here. We know that you're completely capable. It's a matter of making sure that we are offering you the support and the structure that you need to get the most out of you. And we're going to push you really hard because you're worth it and you can do it. It's just a matter of figuring out how that's going to work. So, and that's that really individualized, personalized approach that we talked about from our office, but you would find that office to office to office to a T, to faculty members that you're connecting with, other students, student leaders. That's just part of the DNA here. And I laugh a little bit because when you all have a chance to come and visit Colgate, you will notice that we are on a hill. And so there's a rigor with having to make it at Colgate, being able to come up the hill and come down the hill. There's a camaraderie that happens, and you know, it's a snowy place sometimes and it's gorgeous and beautiful other times, although I think the snow is pretty gorgeous. But when you come to Colgate, it becomes part of you. And so we invest in you and we want you to be successful in whatever way that takes, but it also has to fit on your shoulders. So you also have to want to engage and to learn and to ask questions, not to have the answers, but to ask the questions. And those tend to kind of work itself out.
Well, excellent. Well, we are running right up against time here, but Adrian, my last question that I want to come to you, it's a very simple question. What do you think is the most valuable thing you've learned at Colgate?
I think Teresa just touched on it. It's to ask help when you need help. Going back to being a student athlete, it's a lot to juggle. And Colgate's a new place for me. I'm from Maryland. I don't know about the snow. That snow is different snow than Maryland snow. And so it was a lot to juggle at first, for sure. Don't get me wrong on that. But as soon as I started asking help, I realized, okay, I don't have to have this all figured out in my first 2 months at Colgate. There's so many resources from the Student Health Center, which I was in there a lot because I got sick a lot, but that's a whole nother story. From even the Haven Center and Career Services, the Writing Center, there's so many resources, and really it's just a matter of asking someone, anybody, for help, and they'll help direct you to the person that you need to be helped. So.
Well, brilliant. It looks like we have time for one more. I was worried this was going to shut directly off at 7:45, but we still have 57 friends here, so it looks like we're hanging around. I think, so first of all, students, there's a lot of really good questions here, and just for time, we're not able to get to every single one. Here's what I'm going to do. I am going to post my contact information here. So please, if you have any questions that come up or you feel that we didn't get to, you are more than welcome to reach out. Adrian and Teresa, I won't pressure you, but if you would be so kind, you are more than welcome to leave your information there as well. Our last question comes from Nika, and I think it would be great if the two of you could answer it. What do you think Colgate's single greatest strength is? Doesn't have to be from simply a career services perspective. You can go any way you want with this question.
That's tough. There's so many. I would say the people, honestly. Like, I think that the thing that's so special about Colgate is that everyone is going through a very similar experience, but it's also such a tight-knit, small community. Which is where you breed the camaraderie, and even after you graduate, you still feel the camaraderie and you feel that tight-knit connection. So I would definitely say it's the people and the community that you meet. I've met so many amazing people, friends that I just would have never been able to meet if I hadn't come to Colgate. So yeah, I would say the tight-knit community, the people, it just breeds such a amazing atmosphere.
I would go along with that. I think, as you're looking for a spot for yourself for college, I would pay very, very close attention to who you're going to surround yourself with. Because if you have been impressed at all by Adrian, and I can't imagine that you haven't been, she is 1 in a million in some cases, but very, very similar to a lot of the other students that we have in terms of just really smart, articulate, genuine, authentic, competitive, but not in a cutthroat, take you out at the knees kind of way, although you should see her on the soccer field. She's pretty amazing there as well too, but more of the how do we get each other to be in a better spot too. So if you want to become a deeper scholar, a more competitive athlete, an amazing philanthropist, somebody who really is growing and developing in your character and your integrity of whatever it may be, surrounding yourself by students like Adrian and faculty and staff like my team is only going to make you better. And our job is to be able to launch the absolute best people out into the world so that you can go solve the world's problems and take a smack at it a little bit and try to make this place a better place. So I think when you surround yourself by excellence, you're going to become more excellent yourself. So I 100% agree with Adrian.
Well, excellent. I think that is a perfect place to wrap things up. Adrian and Teresa, I want to really thank you for your time, for sitting on our panel with us today. I hope you had a little bit of fun. Jameer, thank you so much for staying behind the scenes and going through as many questions as you can with our students. And students, thank you for tuning in as well. It is a wild time, to say the least. There is a lot of uncertainty in the present day world, but these little brief moments where we can talk about something that we get really excited about and feel like we're helping a little bit, that can really make all the difference. So we look really forward to helping all of you in any way that you can. Please don't hesitate to reach out. And a big thank you one last time to all my panelists. With that being said, folks, thank you again for tuning in, and please have a wonderful rest of your week and continue to stay healthy and well. All right. Take care, everybody.